Attention! Carry colors! Company order, start!
Quizwen, Medjimide Kniganabekson, Dan Eli Bawadaman, Medjimide Gizilayage, Skitkamik, the Hollow Spumkik, Miline Bem Giskak, the Bunman, and help them a weene, and Dolagubik Zwagnano, the Hollow de Neilon, Eli and help them a wogut, Dan Eli Yocht Gizi, Wabbalay Winnamak, Wijoke Mineskad, the Wabbly, Begiati Winawen, Sami Gil, Knikani Ginson, Naga Gamaj, Jitbus to Gedge, Naga Askamio, Nidlayedge.
On behalf of the Chief and Council of the Woodstock First Nation, and welcome to our unsurrendered territory of the Wolastoqey people. Welcome to our third annual National Aboriginal Veterans Day ceremony to honor our Woodstock First Nation veterans and to remember their sacrifices they made and the courage it takes to defend honor, duty, and country. Today and every day, we should always remember their service and their sacrifices and say thank you. Today, we stand in the midst of heroes and our family and friends and those that have served. And remember, those who ultimately paid the most with their lives. War should never be glorified, yet the sacrifices and achievements of those who participated must never be forgotten. We owe it to our veterans to keep their memory of their service alive. Our First Nation veterans served this country and in the United States, as many were compelled to serve out of patriotism, clan obligations, strong warrior spirits, family traditions, and treaty obligations. Our ancestors signed peace and friendship treaties and promised to come to the military's aid if ever needed. Our veterans did, and we still honor those treaties today. Today is National Aboriginal Veterans Day, our day to remember, to express our pride and gratitude to our First Nation veterans, and to honor them and always remember their sacrifices they made to protect and defend our rights and freedoms and Mother Earth. Today we're here to say thank you. Waliwin, to our First Nation veterans, and to all veterans who serve this country. Thank you. Again, I'd like to welcome Natasha Lyons up here to do O Canada in Maliseet.
Company, carry colors. Color party, order, colors.
Next, I'd like to ask Chief Tim Paul if he could come up and do the act of remembrance.
Color party, carry colors.
Act of remembrance. They shall not grow old. As we are left grow old. Age shall not worry them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them. Thank you.
In Flanders fields. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago, we lived, felt gone, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw, the torch to be yours, to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep till poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Aboriginal Veterans Day. We're here to celebrate our own First Nation veterans. So let's honor them by the reading of every one of their names that are on our cenotaph. Can I ask Sean to come and do that?
Color party, order, colors.
Good morning. We will remember them. World War I. Solomon Tomer. Stephen Tomer. James Sapir, World War I and World War II. World War II. Alfred DeBow. Archie DeBow, who died as a result of war. Charles Pulches. Gabriel Joseph Polches, John Polches, Joseph Polches, Oliver J. Polches, Roy Polches, Edward Socobi, James Socobi, Ambrose Sapir, Martin Paul Sapir, Donald P. Socobi Sr., Vietnam War, Valentino J. Polches, Marshall Sapir, Roger Polches, Gary Paul, peacetime veterans, Lori A. Polches, Frederick Sapir, Rita Polches, David Slager, Patrick J. Sapir Jocko, J. Robin Sapir, Robin Paul, Beecher's Polches, Wendell Marston, Richard Polches, Andrew Paul, Darren Paul, Lance Paul, Robin Paul, Roberta Paul, Jason Sonnefeld, James Elliott, Robert D. Paul, Robert Chevret Jr., and John Wayne Paul. We will remember them.
Every year, we pay tribute to the contributions and sacrifices of our Woodstock First Nation veterans by sharing of their stories. This year's veteran is Private Stephen Tomer. He was born January 14th, 1888 on the Woodstock First Nation. His parents were Frank Toma and Margaret Paul. He married Madeline Maggie Purley from Tobic First Nation in 1908. Private Stephen Tomer enlisted with the Canadian Army on August 15th, 1915. He volunteered with the Canadian Overseas Expeditionary Force, the CEF, serving with the 60th Battalion of the Canadian Army Veterinary Corps. The CEF had several combat formations on the Western Front in Europe at this time. Next, Private Stephen Tomer served with the 5th Battalion of the Canadian Mounted Rifles and participated at the Battle of
Passchendaele.
Sorry.
It's okay.
On April 6th, 1918, Private Stephen Tomer passed away from complications from bronchial pneumonia at the 3rd Western General Hospital in Cardiff, Wales, and is buried at the Cardiff Cemetery, grave marker EB57 in Wales. His name is also posted on page 513 in the Book of Remembrance, which is housed in the Memorial Chamber in the Peace Tower at the Canadian Parliament building in Ottawa, with other service members who passed away serving their country. Thank you for your service, Private Stephen Tomer. Rest in peace, warrior. I'd like to ask Lisa to come up and do her commitment to remember.
Our commitment to remember. They were young, as we are young. They served, giving freely of themselves. To them we pledge, amid the winds of time, to carry their torch and never forget. We will remember them. Please respond with, we will remember them. We will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lewin to Hope.
As you can see, we're doing things a little bit different because of COVID-19. Our wreaths have already been relayed at the cenotaph as per COVID-19 protocols. However, we still like to mention those are our allies, those that usually participate in our ceremonies and help us to celebrate our veterans. So thank you on behalf of the community. Woodstock First Nation Chief and Council, the federal government, and our MP usually brings his wreath too, and we have that placed. The provincial government, the town of Woodstock, Woodstock Nation veterans, our Legion, our Anavets, WFN community, WFN elders, WFN youth, WFN Native women's and the mothers of the community, WFN first responders, WFN Economic Development Corps, all allies of Woodstock First Nation. We'd like to thank you for always participating and always helping us out on our ceremony. So the wreaths have already been placed. So if you still want, after the ceremony, you can come up one by one and pay your respects. But remember, First Nation veterans have fought on the front line of every major battle Canada has been involved in, and have done so with valor and distinction, even though they weren't treated the same as their comrades. At the time of the First World War, First Nations were exempt from conscription, the draft, because they were not considered citizens of Canada. After the First World War, returning veterans did not receive the same assistance as their returning soldiers under War Veterans Allowance. So, some of our World War II veterans even lost their status because the Indian Act specified that Indians absent from the reserve for more than 4 years were no longer considered Indians and would be enfranchised. Another fact, status First Nation citizens were exempt from military service through treaties and with the Government of Canada. But regardless of these exemptions, thousands of First Nations men and women volunteered and placed their lives on the line in the First World War, Second World War, and Korean conflict. In some cases, First Nation veterans were encouraged to enfranchise, meaning they were encouraged to denounce their Indian status, to join the Canadian forces. Many of our First Nation veterans never received a paycheck for their military work. Our First Nations veterans fought wars for the crown and for democracy. Yet, they encountered systemic racism and equitable treatment when those wars were over. The federal government provided benefits to their non-First Nation veterans that they were not available to them. On the battlefield, First Nation veterans and First Nation soldiers stood with their non-native soldiers, stood side by side. Although they fought as equals, and some even died as equals, but returning home was a different story. First Nation veterans had to fight on the home front to be treated like any other Canadian veteran. In 1945, an amendment to the Veterans Land Act finally gave some of our First Nation veterans access to land, but it was a specific tract of reserve land which that veteran would own as their own for a compensation for serving their country. Also to remember, under the Indian Act, Indians did not have a right to vote in Canada until 1961. In 1995, 50 years after the Second World War, First Nations people were finally allowed to lay Remembrance Day wreaths at the National War Memorial to remember and honor their comrades. So it's important to remember our First Nation veterans who are proud to serve in the military efforts, regardless of how they were treated by the Canadian government. On this National Aboriginal Veterans Day, let us remember the service of our Woodstock First Nation veterans, as well as all other veterans who possess the courage, the pride, and dedication to preserve our rights and freedom. Thank you for attending today. I ask the Creator to bless you and your families, and bless your troops that are currently serving. And because of COVID-19, we cannot do our usual meal and socializing that's really key for who we are as people. I apologize, but this is what we got to do. So hopefully next year we can get back to normal. So thank you for coming today. We really appreciate all our allies. Leewin, thank you. I'm going to end it with what our troops always heard: God save the Queen.
Color party, carry colors. Color party, order, colors. Color party, dismiss.